I serve as both the project coordinator and the project lead for the flood project. And I know we are all not oblivious of flooding because flooding is a global pandemic. And in recent times, flooding has caused like a lot of distraction because we know that economies are growing, but then due to COVID-19, we are experiencing economic recession. And so I want to introduce the flood project to you. The flood project is a project, it's a partnership between Ashesi D lab and one Dr. Mae-ling Lokko. In Ghana, flooding is among the top 10 natural disasters. And then it is also the second most challenging problem in Ghana, aside epidemics such as viral and bacterial epidemics. And then Accra has over 20% chance of experiencing flooding given high rainfall. So you can see that flooding is actually a very big problem. And then the June 3rd disaster, for example, showed us the grave effects of flooding if not controlled. And when we talk about flooding, people tend to think that it is more of a social problem because when we control people's behaviors, like not building in waterways, then we will help curb the problem. But then why don't we think of other innovative ways to control flooding? And that's what brought about the flood project. The flood project aims at installing bioswale setups to control flooding. Now, a bioswale is more of a system that channels rainwater or runoff. And then bioswales are made up of absorbable material, absorbable media, such as plants, for example, plants that will make use of the excess rainwater. And another importance of bioswales is that they help to control pollution and debris by channeling this rainwater and concentrating it. And outside Ghana, that's abroad, we have bioswales along road passages in order to control the runoff that goes onto the road, and then we channel it by the roadside, and then it goes into like deeper sewer systems. So we wanted to think about how we can innovate bioswales in the Ghanaian space because it is something that is new. But then we felt like if the bioswale installation is a success, we can scale up and then have more innovative ways of controlling flooding, especially as we know that Ghana is blessed with abundant rainfall, but then we are also blessed with good soils. So if we are able to implement it very well, we can have the project taken off as a success. So last year we implemented the bioswale project, and then we implemented this at the Klottey-Korle constituency. And so we had Dr. Zinato Rollins come in with our lunch and everything. And then it ended up being a success because we got to create awareness of bioswales, and then we're able to engage youth volunteers, and it helped us to implement the project. And so our summer objective for this summer was that we resuscitate our projects that we carried on last year. And so the main summer objective was to resuscitate our project that was at the Efua Sutherland Park. Now, we chose the Efua Sutherland Park because it was more of like MVP testing. We wanted to know how successful it will be when it is implemented in the Ghanaian culture. And with the Efua Sutherland Park, even though it is more of a public space, it is not highly patronized. So we're able to control and limit human traffic because you know that bioswales are natural establishments. And then if you have human disruptions like people trampling upon it and all that, it could like affect the growth of the plants and then affect how we are able to steady the plant's growth and how successful it will be. So we chose the Efua Sutherland Park, and then we decided to resuscitate our project. And then as we study the project, then we'll think about expanding and then creating even more awareness, because this is something that is relatively new, and we felt like if we create more awareness, people may buy into the idea, and then we could even expand on a larger scale. And so the activities that we undertook were research and replanting. So we conducted research into flood-resistant plants in order to know which flora we should incorporate in the bioswale installation. And from our research, we got to know that plants like coriander, okra, French beans will perform very well, lemongrass as well. And so we went ahead to procure the seeds for them, and then we undertook the replanting exercise. And this is a picture of the replanting exercise that took place. For the replanting exercise, since we had a small team, we put up emails to the students' body for volunteers, and we had favorable responses. And so we got a small team who were willing to undertake the replanting exercise for us. So please, this is what went on. And then for the outcomes. So in the beginning, when the plant started to germinate, these are the videos that I got. So this is the germination process of the plants that we planted. And then further, as we observed the plant's growth, we realized that some of the plants started yielding fruits very early. And yes, we chose plants that will achieve their full cycle within a short frame of time, so that we get to understand and study the plants and know what exactly will work, because we reopened in August, and then the project more or less started in June. So we needed short cycle plants that will help us study the plants very well as we are home, because when we are in school, our attention will be divided and we'll not be able to really undertake a very good study of what we've done. And we didn't want to abandon the project either. Yes, and please, as the plants grew, we got to see the effect of our work. And some of the challenges we faced were meeting times, getting convenient meeting times, because some of us began internships and we had different closing times, different starting times. And then supply chain problems. We contacted suppliers for our planting exercise, and some of them will tell you they have seeds, some of them will tell you they have seedlings, and then you give them a deadline, and then they say, no, we didn't have seedlings, we meant seeds and all that. So it was a bit of a hassle. And then routine checks. Engaging in routine checks to the park was a bit of a challenge, because we were from different locations and having to go to the park was quite cumbersome for some of us, especially with late closing times from our internships. And then communication was also a challenge, because I had to handle the project as both the project coordinator and the project lead, which became overwhelming at a point because of my other responsibilities. So communicating outcomes and ideas in time to my members were a bit of a challenge. And funding was also a problem, because seedlings are very expensive, and under normal circumstances we should have used seedlings because they would have been able to grow faster as compared to the seeds. But because we didn't have funds in time, we had to resort to the seeds. And then proactiveness. Because I was handling it alone, if my team members were a bit proactive to also give me ideas on how we can implement the project, or tell me that they have started something and they think it's a good idea, it would have helped us scale up more than them waiting for me to communicate ideas or what exactly they should do for it to be carried out. And then the lessons that we learned were teamwork. I learned that teamwork is very important, because I couldn't do everything on my own, and at a point it became overwhelming. But when I distributed tasks, I realized that things were more effective. Communication too. Communication is very important, especially relating with people who don't know you, in terms of supply, for example. So people were willing to help us when we communicated to them with clarity. Clarity is also very, very important, because they need to know what exactly you want to do to also give you recommendations. And then stakeholder engagement. We also learned the importance of engaging with other people, selling the idea. So as I was doing my internship, especially at the bank doesn't relate with this, but then I could get funding from the bank. So I used to talk to my employers and my superiors, my colleagues, about the project, and it actually whipped up their interest, and they've been asking me how far the project has come. So stakeholder engagement is also very important, because you never know what exactly can come out of engaging with other people who can be potential stakeholders for the project. And then erudition, we got to learn a lot. So for this year's project, we got to learn different plants that will thrive in a biosphere. So we use different plants aside from the ones that we did last year. So we've got to increase our knowledge spectrum on plants that will thrive in a biosphere. And please, our future plans. So for our future plans, we plan on increasing social media presence to get more people involved and more people aware, because we are in a digital space and a social media age. And also, we plan on getting more stakeholders on board in terms of funding, in terms of volunteers. If we get an organization to take up the project and scale it up, that will be very good. And then they'll also be able to contribute more ideas and increase our skill set and our knowledge base. And we plan on opening up the project in newer locations. So as I said earlier, the park is not really patronized, but if we get an area that will whip up people's interest, a public space, but a public space that will also not lead to like a lot of human intrusion. For example, our biosphere installation was such that we had walkways. So even though we had the birds and everything, we had walkways that people will walk and then observe the birds. So with that, we have limited social intrusion with the plant installation. And then we also plan on exploring alternative designs, because if we want to go to different locations, we can't implement the same design, because we have to think about the topography, we have to think about the soil types and all that. And then we also would like to develop multimedia, different ways of engaging other people and creating awareness on our project. Yes, please.
Are you solving the problem of flood, or you are planting in a new innovative way? And if it is the former, the land you chose, does that place have a flood problem?
Yes, we are helping to control the problem of flooding by channeling runoff and then utilizing it to achieve economic gains as well through the planting exercise. Yes,
the land you chose, is it a flood-prone area? Like, does it have a flood problem?
Yes, please. The site that we chose at the park was where all the drains kind of meet, and so when there is excessive rainfall, the water gushes out and floods that area. So we intentionally chose that particular site in order to study how feasible it is.
Thinking about the force that sometimes comes with running water, does it have any adverse effect on the plants, especially when they're really young?
That's very good. So with that, this year's project, some of the crops didn't thrive, but some did exceptionally well. So that's one of the lessons that we learned, that even though the plants may be flood resistant, its ability to handle, as you said, gushing water may be of a problem. So we'll have to study that even more. And then also to control the forces of the water, our installation had a drain in between, and then the lining of the drain was lemongrass, because lemongrass is very good absorbable media. And then we had a concrete installation so that it won't affect the various beds that we had created.
I kept hearing you say installation, bios installation, if I'm not wrong. What are you installing? Are you installing concrete and then using the plants to like...
Okay, I use the word installation to talk about the biosoil structure that we had put in place, because we incorporated like concrete walls and then individual beds and a walkway. So that whole system is what I meant by the biosoil installation. But then outside of Ghana, biosoils are you will not meet like concrete with walkways. You just meet absorbable, and some of them are also aesthetic plants along the roads or highways to channel the runoff into underground sewage, and also to make use of it to aesthetically beautify the area.